I never expected this would be my life. I always thought I was living the American dream, a steady job, a cozy house, and a loving wife named Lisa. We met in college, and after a whirlwind romance, we tied the knot 5 years ago. But lately, something started to feel off, like the air in our home had thickened with unspoken words. At first, I brushed it off. Lisa had begun working late more often, claiming that her job at the marketing agency had ramped up recently. I trusted her. We had built a solid foundation, or so I thought, but there were small signs that made me uneasy. The way she would quickly close her laptop when I walked into the room, or the increasing number of texts she would dismiss as just work. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. One evening, I returned home earlier than usual, eager to surprise her. I walked in on her in the living room, her phone pressed against her chest, her cheeks flushed as she quickly tossed it onto the couch. She had the same guilty look I'd seen in movies, the kind that makes your stomach churn. I casually asked who she was texting, but she just shrugged it off, saying it was a work thing. I forced a smile, but deep down, my instincts were screaming. The next day, I made an impulsive decision. I had never snooped on Lisa before, but that morning, curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed her old phone, the one she had replaced last month. I thought maybe I could find something without being invasive. I scrolled through her messages and came across a conversation that made my heart drop. There it was, casual flirtation peppered with inside jokes and emojis that felt intimate. The name Mark kept popping up, and the more I read, the more I felt the walls close in around me. They discussed meeting up late after work, texted about secret rendezvous, and even exchanged plans that made it clear this was more than just a friendship. I read one message that made my blood run cold. Can't wait to have you all to myself. Just us. No one will know. It was like a slap to the face, and I felt dizzy. My blood pulsed in my ears as I tossed the phone aside, trying to breathe through the shock. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I had always thought of myself as the kind of guy who would recognize the signs of infidelity, who could see through all the lies, but here I was, blindsided. When Lisa came home that evening, I knew I had to confront her. My heart raced as I prepared for the inevitable fallout. I waited until we were sitting at the dinner table, the uneaten food growing cold between us. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "What's wrong?" She replied, her tone almost too casual. "I found some things on your old phone," I said, watching her demeanor shift. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a brief second I saw fear flicker across her face. "What do you mean? I told you that's old news," she shot back, her defenses rising instantly. I leaned forward, trying to remain calm. "I saw messages between you and Mark. You're having an affair, aren't you?" The look on her face was a mix of shock and indignation. She tried to laugh it off, claiming it was just harmless fun, that I was overreacting. But inside, I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. How could she lie so easily? I needed her to be honest, to acknowledge the betrayal, but all I got was deflection wrapped in anger. "Seriously, you're going to believe a few texts over our entire relationship?" she said, the typical bitchy tone creeping into her voice. Her denial was infuriating. In that moment it hit me. I didn't just feel anger, I felt a deep sense of sorrow. How had we reached this point? I had to accept that the woman I thought I knew had become someone else entirely. I pushed my plate away, unable to stomach the thought of food or of her. "This isn't about a few texts, Lisa. This is about you lying to me and betraying our marriage." As the confrontation continued, the hurt in her eyes shifted to defiance. She claimed I was suffocating her, that I never let her have fun, that I was the one who had pushed her into Mark's arms. It was as if she was blaming me for her choices, and I felt a strange mix of disbelief and heartbreak. But I couldn't let her manipulate me like that. I told her I needed time to think, to process everything. I felt like a fool, standing there, witnessing the unraveling of the life I thought I knew. The weight of betrayal hung heavily in the air as I walked away from the table, my heart aching with the realization that my marriage was crumbling before my eyes. What was I going to do next? I had no idea, but I knew I had to figure out a plan. I sat on the edge of our bed, feeling completely lost. My heart was a jumbled mess of emotions, torn between love for her and the anger boiling inside. I felt blindsided and betrayed, and I knew I couldn't allow her to continue to manipulate me. What was my next move? How would I find a way to reclaim my life after this? To be continued. After that explosive confrontation, I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and anger. Lisa was still in the house, but it felt like we were living in separate worlds. I couldn't stand the thought of her lying next to me, pretending everything was fine while the reality of our situation hung heavily in the air. The next day, I decided I needed a plan. I couldn't just sit back and let this go unanswered. I called up my best friend, Jake, who had always been my sounding board for life's tough challenges. He knew Lisa and I well, and I needed someone who could provide an outside perspective. "Dude, you won't believe what happened," I said when he picked up. I launched into the whole story, relaying every detail from the late-night messages to our confrontation. "Man, that's rough," Jake said, his voice filled with sympathy. "You know you can't let her get away with this. What do you want to do?" I took a deep breath, letting the weight of the situation settle on my shoulders. "I want to make her feel the same pain I feel. I want her to realize what she's throwing away." "Revenge, huh?" Jake replied, his tone cautious. "You have to be careful with that. Are you sure that's the path you want to take?" I hesitated. Deep down, I knew revenge wasn't a long-term solution, but in that moment it felt like the only way to regain some control. "I don't even know what else to do. I feel like everything I built is collapsing." "All right, let's think this through. You need to gather evidence," Jake suggested. "If you want to confront her again or take action, you need something solid. Follow her, find out how deep this goes, get the truth." The idea sparked a fire in me. It was time to turn the tables. I spent the rest of the day plotting. I figured if Lisa could betray me so easily, then I could be the one in control for a change. I decided to follow her the next evening when she claimed she was working late again. The following day, I took a mental note of her schedule. She left the house around 6, dressed in a cute, form-fitting dress that seemed a tad too nice for a casual work night. My stomach churned with a mix of jealousy and anticipation as I hopped into my car, following her to the cafe she always mentioned, but never took me to. When I arrived, I had to park a little further away. I couldn't afford to be seen, so I waited and watched from a distance. I wanted to see who she was meeting, hoping to catch them in the act. As I sat there, I felt like a fool, like some cliché out of a bad drama, but I needed this. Minutes passed, and then I saw her. She walked in and immediately spotted Mark sitting at a table near the back. My heart raced as I watched them interact, their chemistry palpable even from where I sat. They laughed, leaned into each other, and shared food, everything that had become foreign to me over the past few months. I felt like I was burning alive from the inside out, the betrayal hammering against my chest. I grabbed my phone and snapped a few pictures for proof. They were too engrossed in their conversation to notice me lurking in the shadows. It seemed unreal. The love of my life was sitting there, giggling over coffee with another man. As the evening wore on, they stayed for hours. I couldn't just watch them anymore. I wanted to storm in and demand answers, but deep down, I knew that would only give her the satisfaction of seeing me in pain. I couldn't give her that. Instead, I drove home, my heart heavy with anger and disappointment. I had the evidence I needed, but now I had to decide how to use it. The realization that I'd been reduced to a spectator in my own life felt suffocating. When I got home, I found Lisa sprawled out on the couch, her heels kicked off, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, feigning surprise. "You're home early. Did you have a long day?" "Yeah, long day," I replied tightly, trying to mask the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. "How was your work?" "Oh, you know," she trailed off, dismissing my question with a wave of her hand. It was as if everything was normal, just the usual. I felt sick. It took everything in me not to blurt out what I had just witnessed. Instead, I told myself I needed to be strategic. I didn't want to reveal my hand yet. I needed to catch her off guard when I confronted her again, to make sure I had the upper hand. Over the next few days, I went into detective mode. I kept my distance while pretending everything was fine. We went through the motions, sharing meals and conversations that felt hollow. I collected more evidence, documenting the times she left, what she wore, and how she acted. Every time I saw the spark in her eyes when she got a text, I felt rage boil over. I couldn't let her continue to manipulate me while she played house with another man. I was a fool to think she would change without a wake-up call. Each night, as I lay in bed, I felt my heart hardening, preparing me for the confrontation I planned. I was done being the victim. It was time for her to face the music. I just needed to find the right moment. But in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered doubts. Was revenge truly the answer? Would it make me feel better, or would it only serve to deepen the wounds of our marriage? I knew I had to decide soon, or I'd be stuck in this limbo forever. To be continued. The following week felt like an eternity. Every day dragged on as I meticulously plotted my next move against Lisa. The emotional turmoil I was experiencing was exhausting, but I couldn't allow myself to back down. I was determined to confront her with the truth, not just for my peace of mind, but to show her the reality of her actions. I designated Friday night as the night I would expose her betrayal. I had gathered enough evidence to make my case undeniable. I even saved the most damning text messages on my phone, knowing that seeing the words laid out before her would be a powerful awakening. As the weekend approached, I noticed Lisa's demeanor shift slightly. She seemed more distracted, often lost in thought or glued to her phone. I wanted to think it was guilt creeping in, but I wasn't about to get my hopes up. This was a woman who had lied to me for months. It was hard to trust anything she said or did. Friday night came, and I acted as if everything was perfectly normal. We had dinner together, and I even complimented her on her outfit, a nice red dress that clung to her curves. She smiled, but there was a flicker of tension in her eyes that I couldn't ignore. After dinner, I suggested we watch a movie. As we settled onto the couch, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me, but I knew it was time. I had to do this. "Hey Lisa, can we talk?" I said, shifting in my seat to face her. "Sure, what's up?" She replied, her voice laced with casual indifference, but I noticed her grip on the couch tightening. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I've been thinking a lot about our relationship, and I need to be honest with you about something. I found some messages on your old phone." Her expression changed instantly. The playful demeanor evaporated as she looked at me with wide eyes. "What do you mean? What messages?" I pulled out my phone, my heart racing as I navigated to the messages I had saved. "These messages, Lisa," I said, my voice steady. "You think I wouldn't notice? You're cheating on me with Mark. It's all right here." I handed her the phone, watching her face pale as she scanned the screen. I wanted to see the realization hit her, but instead she quickly shot back. "This is just a misunderstanding. You're taking this out of context." "Context?" I nearly shouted, my anger boiling over. "Context is you texting him about meeting up, talking about how much fun you're having without me. How is that a misunderstanding?" She looked cornered, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "You don't understand. Mark is just a friend. We've been talking about work, and sometimes it gets a little flirty, but it's nothing serious." "Nothing serious?" I scoffed, my heart racing with disbelief. "You think I'm stupid. You've been lying to my face, and now you want to downplay it. How long has this been going on?" Lisa's facade began to crack, and she hesitated, searching for words. "It's not what you think I was going to tell you." I couldn't take it anymore. Each excuse felt like another stab to my heart. "Tell me what?" "That you've been playing house with another man. That you've been lying to me for months. Please just listen," she pleaded, her voice rising in pitch. I was confused. "You've been so focused on work lately, and I felt alone. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Confused?" I echoed in disbelief. "So you thought cheating was the solution. You made a choice, Lisa. You chose to betray me instead of talking to me." The tension in the room was palpable. I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she tried to come up with a defense, but deep down I think she knew the truth. "I'm sorry," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I was wrong, and I didn't think about how it would affect us. I just wanted someone to listen, someone to make me feel valued." Her words struck a chord, and I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. "You think Mark makes you feel valued? You're fooling yourself. You're throwing away what we have, all for someone who doesn't care about you like I do." "I do care about you. I love you," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I was just caught up in the moment. It was stupid, and I want to make it right." For a fleeting moment I considered the possibility of forgiveness, But how could I? The betrayal felt like a brand on my heart. You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with him. You've shattered everything we built. I felt the weight of my own words crashing down on us. The reality of our situation was sinking in, and Lisa's sobs echoed in the silence that followed. Do you even understand what you've done? This isn't just stupid. This is a complete breakdown of trust, I said, my voice strained. I can't just forgive and forget when you were so quick to betray me. Lisa sank into the couch, her shoulders shaking as she cried. I felt a mix of anger and pity watching her break down, but more than anything, I felt lost. I had envisioned this moment, but the reality felt hollow. After a long pause, I added, I need time to think about what I want. I can't just pretend this didn't happen. I'll do anything to fix this, she pleaded, desperation in her voice. I'll cut him out of my life. Please just give me a chance to make it up to you, but I had heard enough. I needed space to process everything. You need to figure out what you want too, Lisa. I can't be part of this twisted situation anymore. I'm not going to stick around while you play games. With that, I stood up, leaving her on the couch, tears streaming down her face, and walked out of the room. I needed distance to make sense of the chaos swirling in my mind. I had laid bare the truth, but now I had to face the aftermath of it all. The next few days felt like a surreal nightmare. I had confronted Lisa, laid bare the truth of her betrayal, and yet everything felt like it was still spinning out of control. I moved through the house like a ghost, feeling more alone than ever. The laughter and warmth that used to fill our space had been replaced by a heavy silence, punctuated only by the sound of Lisa's muffled sobs from the other room. I tried to distract myself with work, throwing myself into projects that needed my attention. But no matter how hard I focused, the weight of our situation lingered like a shadow. I kept replaying our confrontation in my head, wishing I could find clarity. Part of me wanted to believe her when she said she would cut Mark out of her life, but another part of me struggled to trust anything she said. I found myself reaching out to Jake again. He was my sounding board, and I needed to talk. We met at our favorite bar on a rainy Wednesday night, the kind of weather that matched my mood. As I sat across from him, a pint of beer in hand, I unloaded everything weighing on my mind. Man, I can't believe this is happening, I said, my voice heavy with frustration. I thought we had a solid relationship, and now it feels like I don't even know her anymore. Dude, it's betrayal. It's supposed to hurt, Jake replied, his brow furrowed with concern. What's your gut telling you? Do you think you can ever get over this? I don't know, I admitted, feeling lost. I want to believe we can work things out, but every time I think about what she did, it makes my stomach turn. It's like I'm stuck between wanting to fight for us and wanting to walk away. Jake nodded, understanding etched on his face. It's a tough place to be, but you need to decide what's best for you. Do you want to try to reconcile, or is it time to cut ties? I sighed deeply. I don't want to throw everything away, but I also don't want to be a doormat. I deserve respect and honesty. Exactly. You've got to put yourself first, he said, lifting his glass in a mock toast to self-respect and clarity. I chuckled despite myself, feeling a slight lift in my spirits. Yeah, I guess I need that right now. After a few rounds, I felt the urge to go home and face Lisa again. I didn't know if it was the alcohol or the lingering anger that fueled me, but I felt a sudden surge of courage. I needed to establish some boundaries and see if she was genuinely willing to make amends. When I walked in, the house was dimly lit. The silence felt oppressive, but I could hear the faint sound of Lisa sniffling in the living room. I took a deep breath and steeled myself for another conversation. Lisa, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her eyes red and puffy from crying. I'm so sorry for everything, she said, her voice trembling. I know I messed up and I want to fix this. I've been thinking a lot. Thinking about what? I asked, crossing my arms over my chest. I was prepared for her to plead her case, but something about her tone sounded different this time. About us, she said earnestly. I know I need to earn your trust back. I was selfish and stupid, but I want to make it right. I'll cut Mark off completely. I'll do whatever it takes. I studied her face, searching for any sign of sincerity. How do I know you mean it this time? You've said you changed before and then you went back to him. I know, she replied, her voice breaking. I get it. I've hurt you and I hate myself for it. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but please give me a chance to prove I can be the wife you deserve." Her desperation was palpable, and I felt a flicker of something: remorse, compassion. It was hard to tell. "What does that even look like? What will you do differently?" "First, I'll cut all contact with Mark. I'll block him on everything," she declared, her voice stronger now. "Second, I want to go to couples therapy. I want us to talk about what went wrong and how we can fix it together. I don't want to lose you." The thought of couples therapy gave me pause. Part of me wondered if it was a genuine step forward or just another excuse to maintain some semblance of normalcy. I didn't want to be her emotional crutch while she sorted through her issues. "Therapy," I repeated, weighing the option in my mind. "That's a big step. I know it sounds drastic, but I'm willing to do it," she insisted, her eyes pleading for my understanding. "I want to figure out why I did what I did and how we can move forward. I love you and I don't want to throw our marriage away." The sincerity in her voice was hard to ignore, but could I really trust her? I could see the glimmer of hope in her eyes, and part of me wanted to believe it, but the scars from her betrayal still felt fresh. "I need time to think about it," I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'm not ready to jump back into things without being sure it's worth it." Lisa nodded, resignation settling on her features. "I understand. Just know that I'm committed to making things right, no matter how long it takes." With that, I stepped back, still feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. I had a lot to consider, and I needed to take my time. I didn't want to rush into a decision that could end up hurting me even more. That night, as I lay in bed, I contemplated what Lisa had said. I could easily see all the potential pitfalls of getting back together, but I also saw the glimmer of hope she offered. I had to decide what I wanted. Was it worth trying to rebuild what we once had, or was it time to cut my losses and move on? The days that followed were filled with an emotional roller coaster. I oscillated between feelings of anger, sadness, and a flicker of hope. Lisa had promised to cut Mark out of her life and to seek therapy, but the question loomed large in my mind. Could I trust her again? I was haunted by memories of our happier times, and the thought of losing everything we had built together gnawed at me. I spent hours replaying our conversations, dissecting every word and every fleeting expression on her face during our discussions. Lisa seemed genuinely remorseful, yet how could I be sure this wasn't just another act? I came to realize that no matter how much I wanted to believe in us, I had to protect my heart. One evening, I decided to drop by Jake's place for a heart-to-heart. He had become my lifeline, and I needed someone to talk to who would give me honest advice without sugarcoating the situation. When I arrived, he could tell I was still struggling. "Hey man, what's going on?" he asked, pulling me into a hug. "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't," I admitted, as we settled into his living room. "I've been going back and forth about what to do with Lisa. She wants to work it out, but I'm torn. Part of me wants to walk away, and another part wants to believe she can change." "Look," Jake said, leaning forward, "you have to trust your instincts. If you think she's genuinely remorseful, maybe give her a chance, but don't forget what she did. You can't just erase that." "I know," I replied, rubbing my temples in frustration. "But I'm terrified of being played for a fool again. I don't want to invest in something that's already broken." "Take your time," he suggested. "Make sure you're doing this for you, not for her. And if you decide to try again, set some boundaries. Let her know that you won't tolerate any more lies. You deserve to feel secure in your relationship." His advice resonated with me, and I knew he was right. I had to stand my ground and not lose sight of my own worth. As the days turned into weeks, Lisa maintained her promise. She blocked Mark on all social media, and their communication ceased. But even as she made these changes, the nagging doubts in my mind persisted. I finally agreed to go to couples therapy with her. It felt like a necessary step, but part of me was still hesitant, worried that it wouldn't lead to the resolution we both needed. However, I also recognized that it was a chance to peel back the layers and explore what had gone wrong in our relationship. Our first session was awkward. We sat across from each other in the therapist's office, eyes downcast, each of us grappling with our own feelings. The therapist, an older woman with a warm smile, began by asking us about our relationship history. As we spoke, I could feel the tension in the room. Lisa expressed her regrets and how she felt neglected, while I laid bare the pain I had endured. "I trusted you completely, and you shattered that trust," I said, my voice quivering with emotion. "I can't just forget about it." The therapist nodded empathetically. "Trust takes time to rebuild, and it's clear that both of you have deep feelings for each other. But understanding the root of these issues is vital for healing." The session continued, and we discussed communication and unmet needs. I listened as Lisa shared how my long hours at work made her feel isolated, like she had to seek validation elsewhere. It was a perspective I hadn't fully considered, and it made me realize that while her actions were inexcusable, there were cracks in our foundation that needed addressing. Each session brought up more raw emotions, forcing us to confront the truth. I began to see Lisa in a new light, not just as the woman who cheated on me, but as a person struggling with her own insecurities. It didn't excuse her behavior, but it helped me understand the complexity of our situation. As the sessions progressed, I started to feel some semblance of hope. We were both committed to working through our issues, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of connection with her. One night after a particularly productive session, we returned home, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for being willing to work through this," she said softly. "I know I've hurt you deeply, but I want to be better for you. I want to fight for us." Her sincerity touched me, and I felt a wave of affection wash over me. "I appreciate that. I want to believe we can get through this together, but I need you to understand that it will take time," I replied, making the boundaries clear. "I know," she said, reaching for my hand. "I'll do whatever it takes." As the weeks turned into months, things began to shift. We worked on our communication, trying to be more open and honest. Lisa made an effort to engage with me, asking about my day and making plans for us to spend quality time together. It wasn't perfect, but there was a noticeable change in the way we interacted. Yet the past lingered like a shadow. Every time I saw a text on her phone or felt her pull away, the anxiety would bubble up again. I realized that trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. It was a slow, arduous process, but I was determined to see it through. Finally, one night after dinner, Lisa turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Can we talk about the future?" she asked. "Sure," I replied, my heart pounding. I wasn't sure what she was getting at. "I've been thinking about what we want for ourselves, for our marriage," she continued. "I want us to move forward, but I also think we need to be honest about what we truly want." Her words hung in the air as I processed them. "What do you mean?" "I want to work towards a future together, but I also realize that it might not be the same future we envisioned before," she said, her voice steady. "Maybe we need to redefine what our relationship looks like moving forward." I nodded slowly, understanding her point. "I see what you mean. We've both changed, and I think we need to be open to new possibilities." It was a conversation I didn't expect, but it felt grounding. We were acknowledging the reality of our situation. I didn't know what the future held, but I was willing to explore it with her, one step at a time. The months rolled on, and with each passing day, I found myself navigating the complex waters of rebuilding my marriage with Lisa. There were moments of clarity and connection, but also days where I felt the sting of betrayal resurface. It was a constant ebb and flow, but we were committed to the process. We continued attending couples therapy, where we explored the foundations of our relationship and the reasons behind Lisa's infidelity. Each session exposed layers of vulnerability that I hadn't seen before. Lisa would speak about her insecurities, about feeling unappreciated in my shadow. I realized that my focus on work had taken a toll on her, and that I had to balance my ambitions with being present for her. In turn, I opened up about my feelings of betrayal, hurt, and confusion. It was hard to admit that I had felt alone in my own marriage, without realizing she was feeling neglected. I was learning that relationships require constant effort from both sides. Love alone wasn't enough to sustain us. One evening after therapy, as we sat in our living room, the atmosphere felt lighter. Lisa turned to me, her expression earnest. "I've been thinking a lot about how we can rebuild things," she said. "I want to create new memories with you, Let's take a trip somewhere, just the two of us. A fresh start. The idea caught me off guard. Part of me felt hesitant, unsure if I was ready to dive back into a romantic getaway, especially after everything we had been through. But as I looked into her eyes, I saw a spark of hope, a genuine desire to reconnect. Okay, I said slowly, weighing my words. Where do you want to go? How about the cabin we used to go to in the woods? She suggested. It was always our place to escape, and I think we could use that time to talk and reconnect. I nodded, contemplating the suggestion. The cabin held memories of laughter, warmth, and love. It felt like a place where we could rediscover each other, away from the chaos of our everyday lives. We planned the trip for the following weekend, and as the day approached, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The drive to the cabin was filled with an unfamiliar tension, but also an undercurrent of anticipation. I hoped that this trip would provide an opportunity for us to solidify our newfound commitment to each other. When we arrived, the familiar sights of the cabin flooded my mind with nostalgia. The towering trees, the crisp air, and the sound of leaves crunching beneath our feet felt comforting. We settled in, and as we sat by the fireplace that night, I felt a renewed sense of hope. "Remember the first time we came here?" I asked, a smile creeping onto my face. Lisa laughed, her eyes brightening. "Yeah, we were so clueless. We spent half the time trying to figure out how to start a fire." We reminisced about our past, sharing stories and laughter. It felt like we had stepped back in time, reconnecting with the essence of our relationship. As the night wore on, we opened up about our dreams for the future, what we wanted for ourselves individually and as a couple. "I want us to be stronger," Lisa said, her voice earnest. "I want us to communicate better and support each other no matter what." "I want that too," I replied, my heart swelling with hope. "I want to be the partner you deserve, one who listens and engages with you." As we talked, the emotional weight we had carried for so long began to lift. We acknowledged the difficulties we faced, but we also celebrated the growth we had both experienced. It was a turning point, a moment of clarity amidst the storm. With the warmth of the fire crackling beside us, I took Lisa's hands in mine. "I want us to move forward, and I want to believe in our future together, but I also need to be honest. It's going to take time for me to fully trust you again." "I understand," she replied, squeezing my hands tightly. "I'll be patient. I'll do the work, and I'll show you every day how much you mean to me." After a long pause, I leaned in closer. "And I'll do my part too. I'll prioritize us, our relationship, and make sure we're both getting what we need." As we shared that moment, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. It wouldn't be easy, but we were committed to trying. The next day, we ventured outside, taking long walks through the woods and enjoying the beauty of nature. We laughed, we talked, and we began to rebuild the intimacy that had been lost. By the time we returned home, I felt lighter, as if a new chapter had begun. The journey ahead wouldn't be without challenges, I knew that. But I also recognized that love isn't just about the good times, it's about navigating the hard moments together. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on everything we had been through, the heartache, the betrayal, and ultimately, the resilience. I had learned about the fragility of trust, the importance of communication, and the power of vulnerability. In the end, I realized that relationships are not defined by the mistakes we make, but by how we choose to move forward after those mistakes. I was ready to embrace the uncertainty of the future with Lisa, knowing that together we could face whatever came our way. And as I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace washing over me. We were on the path to healing, and for the first time in a long while, I believed that maybe, just maybe, we would be okay.